Good afternoon. Today's date is June 15th, 2025. Time is 5 p.m. Now, the next video involves a video that I had did earlier, a live that I had did earlier. I wanted you guys to see what my comments were after I attended this military parade or the event. I didn't actually get into the parade, but I'll tell you what led up to that, and I'll show you what exactly went down, the amount of people that were there, how things were situated, how they were organized, and things like that. That's coming a little bit later on down the line. This video pretty much just describes. There's no illustrations or anything in this one, exactly what I had went through. Now, I do get thrown off track a little bit and start talking about other things. The video is about 51 minutes long, so it is a little bit long. So if you want to save it, come back to a little bit later, fine. If not, it's pretty interesting. Of course, I'm a little bit biased. So go and listen to it through. And tell me what you think in the comments. By all means, please follow, like, and repost by all means. And I'll catch you guys with the other videos a little bit later on down the line. Thank you. Some segments from my journey yesterday, as far as the Trump parade is concerned. Now, I know there was a lot of stuff happening around the country, but I just want to give my 2 cents after the fact in regards to the parade. Now, I got to say that it was a very aggravating day, to say the least. The morning was okay because I sat by the Capitol building. A lot of stuff was blocked off, so I couldn't get on to the parade grounds. I couldn't get anywhere, pretty much. So I just stayed by the Capitol building. I gave a couple of comments over there for about an hour and change. I did a live, and it was met with some with positive feedback. So I'm glad for that. So based on that, I decided to go back later on in the afternoon. I had somebody else had to drop off a little bit later in the day. So I dropped them off and I decided to go into DC and just kind of check it out, give you guys a firsthand view of what exactly is happening down there. Because a lot of people are hearing it about it on TV, and maybe on YouTube. There's some clips about it. Now, I can tell you from my point of view, I know there have been some clips out there that are saying that nobody actually attended. There was a very little turnout. From where I was sitting, there was a significant amount of people, but they were in the wrong area. Okay. Now, when I came back the second time, I was over near the Capitol building. Near the Capitol building, they had this long line leading up to some type of demo they were having for the Army. It wasn't for the people thought it was the line for the parade, but it wasn't. So they were all lining up. And I think in the picture that I have, sorry about that, I haven't learned how to insert pictures just yet. But the line stretched down almost to the Capitol building, not quite, maybe a block or two from the Capitol, all the way up to, let's say, midway in the mall. If you're familiar with Washington, D.C., you have the Capitol building on one end, you have the National Mall area, which is a grassy area. That's where they have most of their protests and demonstrations. Then you have the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, and then behind that, the Lincoln Memorial. So everything was blocked off from the Washington Monument all the way through the Lincoln Memorial. You couldn't get in there. It was fenced off all around the parks. And there was just no way to get in there. It was sort of gated. So I'm going to call this parade the gated parade. It was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Now I had I'm from New York City, so every year they get this Thanksgiving Day parade, Puerto Rican parade, whatever parade they have down there, and people just typically line up on the sides of the street, and then they have their parade, and then it's done. This was a very unusual situation. Now, the pictures you may see on YouTube where it shows the Washington Monument and the grassy area around the Washington Monument and not many people there, I wasn't in that area. I couldn't get into that area. I guess you had to get into this long line at some point to get into that area. So that's why probably a lot of people that were waiting on this supposed this line they thought was for the parade, that's why they probably weren't there. There was a significant amount, certainly not a grand amount, but there was a significant amount. If I were to guess, maybe another 1,000 people, something like that. It'll show in the picture of the line. Maybe a little bit, maybe a couple thousand. But they were going to this display that the Army had. That's what they were looking at. Now I talked to one of the police officers there while I was next to this area in front of the line, and he said, no, all these guys are waiting here They think it's the line to the parade, and it's not. It's, it's just for this exhibit. And matter of fact, it's closing in the next 15 minutes, and there was still about 3 or 4 blocks of people waiting in line for this. So I was doing as I said, I was on the ground doing my own observation. So what I'm telling you right now is firsthand accounts. So I started out in the morning. I went to East Potomac Park, and I parked my car there. And then I took one of these electric bikes that they have in the city, and I made my way over to the downtown area. Now, that journey was very interesting, because there was no way for me to pass these barriers that they had. I mean, they had almost the whole, between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument, all that was cordoned off all the way back to the park area, all the way up to past Constitution Avenue. You just couldn't get in it. So me trying to get over to where I had to go, I had to lift up the bike, bring it over some Jersey walls they had upset. I had to set up there. I was asking the guy, hey, how do you get over? He said, we got to get over the Jersey wall. You got to hop over. I got this big, heavy bike. Look, I'm not ashamed to say that a couple of police officers helped me get that bike over, and they were female police officers. There were about 10 dudes standing there. Hey, you need some help? But it was the ladies that came and helped me out. Hey, ladies, if you see this, shout out to you. Appreciate it. Anyway, so I get on over there, and I set up my camera. And as I said, later on, if you guys follow me, you'll see some of the clips that I have of that day and exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to take them from the lives that I did. So I get on over there, and I set up about 2 blocks from the Capitol building, and I'm looking at this big, long line going to this U.S. Army demonstration, which, as I said, people thought it was the line for the parade, but it wasn't. It was about, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, something like that, so it was kind of early. Now, of course, that Army display, whatever that was, sort of dissipated around 2-ish or something like that, and it was at that time that the people were notified, hey, look, you're in the wrong line. You got to get over into this line over here, which is about 6 blocks down the road. So you see a mass of people, those people that were inside the exhibit, and also in that line, they're all making their way down to the area where they have to get online. Now, again, I'm going to show this to you. As I said, I don't have it up now, but I'll put it up later on today. Picture this. They have everything cordoned off. As far as the parade is concerned, it's in a gated area. So that's why I call it the gated parade. It was the most ridiculous thing I ever seen. So these people were zigzagging back and forth on Constitution Avenue, sort of like snaking, because obviously there wasn't enough room. They would have extended about 5 blocks had they stayed in a single line, but they were snaking back and forth along Constitution Avenue until they got to 12th Street. Then they would go behind the Museum of American History, and then past the Museum of African American History, and then there was this access area where they can go into this gated area. Now, I did say that I might go in there to take a look at the parade, but with the lines the way they were and how crazy it was, I wasn't going to do it. So I just stayed out there and I just did some video. I just did a live out there. Well, come to find out, it started a half an hour early because they were afraid of the rain. And of course, Donald Trump don't want to get his hair wet. And if it does, you don't want to see that, okay? Now, obviously, I was looking at some pictures because I didn't go inside to the parade grounds. But from what I understand, they had all these, benches set up or with seating areas. And a lot of those had a lot of empty spaces. Sort of, I call it the Western parade where you had wide open spaces. So, so basically, a lot of people were coming up to me while I was sitting there doing my live, and they were asking me, well, how do you get in there? So finally, what I told you is what I told all of them. You have to go in this area. But I just thought it was just weird. Now, if this thing costs $42 million, I can't see where it would cost to move the military that much. I'm sure there was transportation costs which were involved in that. But one of the things that stuck out to me, and by the way, before I say all that, the law enforcement people that were there, I gotta say, I've been down on them. I've been down on them lately. Certainly not all of them, but there are some eggnogs out there that obviously are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm sure around the country you probably saw a little bit of that as well. But I got to say that the guys over there, the DC police and the DHS officers that were there, they were all very laid back. They weren't up on the people. They didn't have masks on. They didn't have all this tactical gear on. They were just sitting back, watching, making sure that everything's cool and copacetic. They were very friendly to approach. They were very polite. Matter of fact, hate to say, that same bike I was telling you about, I was riding around and I sort of was trying to get off the bike and I caught my pant leg. Don't ride a bike with pants on. And I came down on the ground on my shoulder, and about 5 of the officers came and see if I was okay and what have you. So I thought that was pretty cool. Shout out to them if they're watching this as well. So anyway, getting off the subject for a second. So basically this thing was, the parade, the actual parade was about 10 to 11 blocks long, from the if you know DC, it's from Lincoln Memorial up to 14th Street, and then of course you had the Washington Monument was part of that enclosed area as well, but people were just kind of hanging out there, and that's where you saw some pictures on YouTube or TikTok where you saw sparse areas. That's with people sort of hanging out prematurely during the day. They were joined by a lot more people later on that day, maybe to double the size, but it wasn't all that grand. I know they expected about 200,000 people there. 10,000 maybe, 15,000, something like that showed up. Maybe, look, I'm even going to give it 20,000 showed up. Now, the rest of the city was sort of like a ghost town. It was sort of sparse. You had some tourists that were coming through the area. And you had, just people just kind of watching and seeing what's happening. But the rest of the city around that concentrated area was pretty much sparse. Now, as far as the people that comprised individuals that were waiting to go in to see this parade, I can't say exactly who they were. I did talk to a few of them to sort of get a gist as to what they were. And I was watching what they were wearing. They had a lot of concession stands set up for people who like the Trump paraphernalia. I was looking for some Biden stuff. I couldn't find that to save my life. All of it was Trump stuff. The felon T-shirts and all that kind of good stuff, and the hats and the red hats and what have you. So a lot of the people, obviously, they were playing towards the crowd. So I can surmise, and I can't be 100%, but I can surmise that a lot of the people there were Trump supporters. Sort of like a rally all over again. And they were supporting anybody who obviously doesn't support this administration. They were nowhere near the city. Okay, I was a little bit crazy to do that, but hey, it is what it is. I figured that's the only way I can get the information out to people who weren't there. So that's why I took the opportunity to do that. Now, so as I said, the police were cordial. So it wasn't that, batons and the face masks and the tear gas and all that stuff. But one thing I did notice is that, going back to what I was alluding to earlier, is that a lot of the expense probably went to, paying people to be there to watch after the parade. Yeah, I saw people from FBI, I saw people from Homeland Security, I saw people from Metropolitan Police, so there was a whole gamut of a whole bunch of trucks and lights and flashing lights all over the place. Now, in regards to the threat from Donald Trump, if anybody's protesting, it would be met with great force. Come on, man. That was funny. There weren't many protests downtown in D.C., well, that I saw anyway. But the one that I did see, I recorded for about 12 minutes on my way out, because I saw it on the way out. And it was right at the end of the parade procession on the other side of the fence. And there was about 50, maybe 70 people out there, and they were from the No Kings protest. And the police were just standing around. They were standing around looking, making sure everything was okay. They were just chit-chatting and what have you. It was no type of egregious situation to where they had to engage in things like that. And people were speaking their minds. There weren't a whole big crowd from where I was. But then you saw isolated people from time to time holding banners, holding signs. And one guy who was really prolific, he was out there. He was egging these people on. He had this sign. The guy said, "Hey, get a job." He said, "I got a job." He said, he said, "Look, I'm off. Today's my day off. I can do what the heck I want to do." And he was just, that line I was talking about, he was just going up and down the line, just getting people's goat. So it was kind of interesting. It was hot outside. And I guess maybe that might have kept some of the people away. Certainly, the people who don't agree with having this parade don't agree. But one thing I've noticed too, let's take the parade and let's take the honoring of the Army. Okay, I definitely agree with the fact that all our military services, including the Army, have their day to shine, and this was partially their day to shine. If only that's what it only was. To have something like this, well, maybe not a gated parade, but something like this for the Army, I could see something like this because the National Mall is known for that. People go onto the National Mall, they put up festive, tents, and today's, food truck day, today's this day, today's that. That's what the National Mall is for. So as far as recognizing the Army, hey, look, that's something that could have very well been done on the National Mall without this grandioso, hey, this is a parade and it's my birthday and all that kind of good stuff. It would have cost the American taxpayers a lot less money. Hopefully not much at all because they would have had sponsors. And then I saw some video. I didn't go into the parade, but I saw the video of Trump with the salute like this. I don't know what he was doing. Obviously, since he wasn't in the military, you don't salute like this, but I guess that's the way he does things. Well, anyway. So just give you sort of an idea as to what you had missed yesterday. Again, I will put up clips later on today of things that I said, people that I talked to, and things that I saw while I was out there. So this way you guys can get a gist. Now, was it a dud like some people on TikTok and YouTube indicate? It wasn't a dud. There were a lot of Trump supporters there. But it would appear that was most of who was there. And, of course, you had some of the Army guys because they were taking this Army Day seriously. And they should, and they were out there and they were, they were proud. I saw a lot of Army hats out there and what have you. And so that was all well and good. Okay. So I just want to give you guys sort of a synopsis as to what I saw. And let me see if I have any comments here that I can maybe attend to. And, by the way, while I'm at it, and I forgot today's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of you fathers out there. I don't care what political side of the side that you lean on. Fathers play a very big role in a child's life. They lead the family from what I can see. I try to lead my family. I'm not controlling. I'm not the boss of the family. I found that out living with 3 women, that you're never the boss of the family. But you do set the pace. You do set the pace, and they do look to you for guidance. So hats off to all the dads out there. Appreciate what you're doing. And for the ones who don't want to be around, well, I take that back. But for the ones who do want to be engaged and do a great job raising our kids, hey, my hat's off to you. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go and take a look at some things. Malicious compliance soldiers who simply walked instead of marched. Yeah, these guys, these poor guys were tired out. I was looking at them, and it looked like a lot of them didn't want to be there. But of course, when you're in the military, you don't really have a choice. I mean, who's, you're an E3, E4, E5, E6, and they say, hey, jump, you just say how high, But a lot of these guys didn't want to be there. They definitely weren't walking in cadence. They were just kind of strolling down the road. From what I saw personally, and then what I saw that was inside the parade grounds, these guys were tired. Now, I did take some images of some groups, and I don't know what type of vehicles they were, and I thought I recorded it, but I must have pressed the stop button because I was looking for the video this morning. I couldn't record it. While they were leaving the city, there was a whole train of these Army vehicles with machine guns on top. You had a driver in the front, a driver on top. So if anybody knows what that is, just put it in the comments. I don't know what type of vehicle. It has about 6 wheels, 3 on each side, and some type of I don't know what it is. I'm from the Marine side of things. I was a Navy corpsman, so I was with the Marines, and I'm familiar with a lot of their equipment. Well, that was back in the days too. They probably got a lot of new stuff out there. But let me see. Yeah, but it's a proud of our country. Oh yeah. I mean, is this Nanny Goat? Okay, I love the parade. Was so proud. Yeah. You should be proud of the military. You should be proud of the military. But if there's an underlying scenario here as to why they had it and, you know, why they put it together, then that should be looked at. But as far as the military is concerned, as far as the Army is concerned, sure, we're proud of them. And, you know, like all the other military branches, they deserve their day to shine. So there's nothing wrong with that. But finding out what the connection is, why it was there, why we had to pay 42, well, not me, of course, collectively, $42 million for this. What was the purpose behind it? Was it to satisfy some type of underlying want or need from a single individual, or was it truly to honor our nation's heroes? Take a look here. Democrats and liberals threw our U.S. Army under the bus for an anti-Trump sound bites. The Army under the bus. Yeah. I would say that some of the sound bites out there, some of them that I looked at, because I was there personally, might have been a little bit exaggerated. You know, they might have been it might have been a little bit preemptive, and they might have said things to sort of push their narrative, especially if you weren't there and you were just looking at it from the outside and taking sound bites or what have you. Where I was, because there weren't too many places you could go. I mean, they had almost everything. Just traveling on the city was crazy. I had to go all the way down to the Capitol building in order just to get out. And of course, I couldn't go towards the Lincoln Memorial because all that was shut down. So there wasn't much movement that anybody can do just in a sort of closed area. But the big thing about this parade is the parade was gated. It was a gated parade. It's like if you didn't gain entry into that secluded area, you weren't seeing the parade. And of course, in order to do that, you had to go through a gauntlet of these ridiculous lines going back and forth and up and around the corner and what have you. As I said, you know, from where I was sitting, and you'll see in the videos that I show later on, there was a significant amount of people there on Constitution Avenue, concentrated. But outside of Constitution Avenue, past 14th Street or past 12th Street, and of course, north of 14th Street, there wasn't a whole lot happening there. There wasn't a whole lot happening. So it was just a concentrated right there. And some of the pictures you may see may show maybe half of the people that were there. There were probably a little bit more than that as the day progressed. Now, I didn't stay there past, I guess I left around 6:30, so I was tired. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was hot, I was tired, I was sweaty. I was down there a little bit longer than I thought I wanted to, than what I wanted to be. But as I said, I did it all because there were people who weren't able to be there, and I wanted to give them a bird's eye view, or at least a first-hand account as to what was going down there. Let me see. Who's this? Patricia. They encouraged lawlessness. They had to be careful. Patricia, expound on that. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Trump trying to do what founders feared. Yeah. Now, you know, I guess the reason for the parade has been litigated in the court of public opinion for a while. So what I'm basically telling today is not so much the reason why the parade was there and what have you, just what happened at the parade, and from what I saw, as I said, as a first account. Oh, 1 second here. Something I can. So why? Okay, Kerry Pie. So why do so many people think that Trump is a king? He is our chief in charge, president, no king. Well, he's definitely not king. He may want to be, but also there's something else to consider. People think that this man is running the country. They give him all the credit. He's the genius. He's the mastermind behind all of this. Well, it's my opinion, my humble opinion, that he's not. Yeah, he is our president, but he's the head of the snake, but he's not the brains of the snake. There's other people behind him. Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon, he's still out there. A lot of other people. I can have a whole long laundry list of people, to include a lot of the oligarchs, a lot of the billionaires out there. These are the people that got this man into office. I'm going off the parade for just a second. got this man into office. And the reason why they got him into office is because he's a useful idiot. And what I mean by that is that he's easy to control. He's easy to manipulate. He's a narcissist. And as a result of being a narcissist, he thinks differently from the rest of the people. He thinks differently from you and me, even for the people who support him. He thinks differently. Or maybe some of the people support him. So he's going to take all the credit for everything. Remember, over the years, what he said, I'm the best in this, I'm the best in that, I know more about this, I know about that, I know about this, but he can't even read his intelligence briefings. 12 in the time he's been president. That's not saying a whole lot about his intelligence or what he's willing to do. Now, going back to what I said about being a useful idiot, is people like him that way. The people that put him in power, and whether you believe it or not, there are people that put him in power. It wasn't through the majority of the American people that put him there. Well, I know a lot of people think that's the case, and they're like, oh, he's some type of, 77 million people, and there was a mandate, and he's president, and shut up, and all that stuff. So, okay, I hear that. But it wasn't a majority of the people that put him into power, okay? It was a select few people, to include the Musk character, and he even said it too. Now, if you look back to what he had stated when he was having his tissy fit with Donald Trump, he said this specifically. He said, if it weren't for you, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have won the presidency. And he's right. He's absolutely correct. Now, why do we know he's correct? Well, Donald Trump is a narcissist. He has narcissistic tendencies in which he thinks he's the best of everything. He also takes credit for everything. What does that do? That lets the people behind him that are pushing him off the hook, because he's going to take credit for everything. And of course, like narcissists, they have their moments where they go off the deep end. Have you seen it with the sharks, electrocuted sharks, and the what was the other thing? Hannibal Lecter and things like that. But then you have Elon Musk, and he's autistic. Now, he's a high-functioning autistic. I have a cousin who's autistic, but he graduated from the Naval Academy. Go figure. The other cousin, his brother, taught himself how to play musical instruments, and he plays them perfectly. He taught himself. So, very high-functioning. Although they have their moments as well, like my cousins, they have their, they go off the deep end from time to time, and so does Elon. He goes off the deep end as well. So you've got the narcissist going off the deep end, then you've got the autistic guy going off the deep end. They're going to say stuff at some point down the line, which is going to be the truth, and it's going to be something that's damning, similar to what Elon had said when they had their breakup. I went ahead and, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't have won the election. Most people thought it was because of money. He gave his money. It was a lot more than that. And you'll see in the upcoming months that there'll be evidence coming out to that. Now, it's my opinion, and if anybody asks, this is for educational purposes only. Okay, but Elon, he had some very specific numbers. He said in his comments about Donald Trump, not only does he want him impeached, he said he helped him win the election, and he also said, he talked about the breakdown, what it would have looked like had he not helped them. He would have said the Democrats would have won the House, and the Senate would be a 51-49 split in favor of the Democrats. Why such a specific number? 51-49. Were there races like the presidency, like the president's race, on the down ballot that were skewed a certain way? And was there a certain number of races that were skewed a certain way, where if they weren't skewed, it would have been a 51-49 split? Just think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. But there'll be evidence at some point down the line which will show some type of underhanded. Again, it's my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. Anything that I say here, take with a grain of salt. But it's something to think about. You have to open up your minds and think about it. Let's take a look here. Let me see. Is that why he just turned the beams on, overran? You like Elon. You don't like Elon. Now you like him. No, I don't like Elon. Jackson, I don't like Elon. Elon's not my friend. I was thinking of buying a Tesla. Now that's all out the window. No, I don't like Elon. Elon Look what he did. Now, first of all, Trump is saying, and it's not me who doesn't like Elon, it's Trump. Trump says he's crazy. But this is the man he put in charge of chopping out the federal government. But yet, he put a crazy man in charge. Now he's a crazy man, according to Trump. He is a crazy man, according to Trump, right? But yet he put him in charge of firing all them people, of taking various programs, going into our country's most intimate secrets. He put a crazy man in charge. So no, I don't like Elon. He's not one of my favorite people. But he made a good point. It may have slipped out, but he made a good point. Let's take a look here. Yeah, exactly. Is that Miss Taylor Anarita? I guess that's, if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize. But yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think that's the way he did it. Remember when I get back to said, and I said that you have a narcissist and you have someone who is autistic and they have their moments? That was a knee-jerk reaction from him, although it wouldn't hurt him to be in good graces with the American people, which it will be impossible because of what he's done. He doesn't realize that, though. But he thinks, I don't think that's the methodology he's using. I don't think that's the psychology he's using. I think Elon is doing it because he just had a brain fart pretty much, and he went off the deep end, and that's what he said. But after all the smoke cleared and he came down, he was like, hey, look, these guys got me by the brass, whatchamacallits. I got them by the brass. You know, Elon and Trump. They both got each other's by the short hairs. They cannot flip on each other because if one flips on the other, they'll tell exactly what the other person did. And as a result, both of them will be held liable. Educational purposes, remember, I'm just saying that. Take it with a grain of salt. But they both got each other by the crosshairs as far as I'm concerned. So if Elon says, oh, Trump, you know, he did this, he did that, he did this, or if Trump says, Elon did this, that, then they're both up the creek without a paddle. And they're both going, maybe not to the same holding facility, but both will have orange jumpsuits. So they are protecting each other. And I'm sure a couple of other billionaires jumped in as referees and told them, hey, look, you guys need to cool it out. Because if you don't cool out, you know, our opportunity to have these riches come our way on the backs of the American people is going to go away. See, a lot of you guys think that it's Trump supporters. Think it's, you know, I constantly hear liberals. These liberals. Come on, man. Get off of that. You know, as far as you're concerned, Joe Biden controls the weather. He probably sent that weather. You know what? Thinking about it. He probably sent that weather yesterday. Now, it couldn't have been, from what I understand, a little bit further down south, it came down like cats and dogs. So it sort of missed the downtown area. But Joe Biden might have been responsible for that, and he probably was responsible for the Civil War as well. Why don't we throw that in there? Okay. But he can't be responsible for everything because a lot of the stuff that's been going on within the government has been going on through many administrations. It's been going on through Republican and Democratic administrations. They just kicked the can down the road. Okay. So it just happened to be landing on Joe Biden's time. And of course, someone used that as fuel to try to win an election. Take a look what we got here. I mean, I was on the parade for a second, and then I got into this. I apologize about that. Let's go and take a look. The parade, yeah. Now, I was looking at those little toy tanks that they brought in there, and I guess the reason why they chose those is because they're not the heavy tanks, which weigh about 60 tons and would tear up the asphalt. And that's probably another reason why they probably only did it for a short burst, because with all that heavy equipment on those roads, who knows what type of road repairs. I'm just guessing on that. I have no idea. Okay, let's take a look here. Result of agenda that's been in the works for decades. Yeah. As a matter of fact, A with a slash. I know who you are. But Yeah, this has been in the works for years. For people saying it's Biden, it's Trump, it's been in the work for years. These billionaires have been throwing out propaganda, feeding you, feeding us all kinds of stuff, feeding, and people are like, yeah, let's get him, let's get him, let's get him. You know, it's like that. It's like that group mentality where one person says one thing and the other person, yeah, let's get him. So they've been feeding this stuff for years to make you believe that it's this policy, that policy, this party, this party. But what it really is, if you want to look at it, is the people who control this country, control you and I, control all the things that we contribute to on a daily basis to make us dependent on, cell phones, to make us dependent on Walmart, on Target, on internet and things like that. People who control those avenues, the news even. Now, I'm not saying all news is fake news. There are a lot of good people out there trying to get out the word, but keep in mind who owns those outlets. Joy Reid and Don Lemon, they were both fired. Now, who owns those outlets? The people who own these outlets, like Fox. Fox most likely has some type of international investment as well, from Russia. From what I understand, there's some international investment there. So they've got some skin in the game. But the people who own these outlets, for them to pick any other president would have been against their better interest. Why? Why is that? Because if you remember, Joe Biden had mentioned that if he should win the presidency, he will let the tax cuts for the ultra-rich expire. They're like, who, what? We've been giving millions of dollars to this guy. And I did a video on this as well. If you want to go back, take a look at it. If not, I may do another one just to refresh it. But they said, why are we going to support this guy? Why are we going to support him? He's going to take away billions of dollars out of our pockets. So that's where this all lies. It's not whatever policies or abortion rights or anything like that. It has to do with who's going to be in control. It has to deal with money, power, and greed. That's what it has to do with. Okay, and if you think it's your MAGA guy who's letting you down, or it's the crying liberals who are letting you down, that's not it. They want us to believe that. They want us to believe that. They want us to fight against each other. And while we're doing that, and we're busy doing that, living our mediocre lives, scratching from paycheck to paycheck, some of us a little bit more affluent than that, but for most of us, scratching from paycheck to paycheck, while we're busy doing that, they're working their magic in the background. Going back to what I was saying about Donald Trump not controlling the government. See, it would behoove them to have a man like that in there. And the reason being is because this Project 2025, that's not something that's made up. These guys are actually trying to articulate, and they're trying to put together a system where they can control the government without the presidency. Now, what does Donald Trump really do? He comes out, he says a couple of words, everyone's looking at him, flashing lights. Oh, he said this, that's horrible. And they're talking about it for about a week. Now, while they're looking at him talking about that for about a week, these guys are doing their magic in the background. So they want him there because they know he's ineffective, but they know he's a distraction and he will distract you. Then after he's finished distracting you, what does he do? Anybody know? What does he do after he finishes distracting you at the end of the week or even the middle of the week? Where does he go? He goes to Mar-a-Lago, goes to play golf, does what he wants to do, hosts parties and things like that. He's the party president. He's the golfing president. If we would have someone who have the most golf games, hey, he's the man I'd vote for. But that's the thing about it. So it's not him that's actually running the government. It's the guys behind him that's running the government. These guys are actually positioning him so everyone will, be distracted by the funny man or the audacious man or the ridiculous man or however you want to call him. While everybody's focusing on him, these guys are running the show in the background. And then, of course, you've got his cabinet members. And I mentioned yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw the clip on it, but in the one of the congressional hearings, and I did a video on it, they asked Kristi Noem. Now, this is the head of the Secretary of Homeland Security. They asked her, point blank, what is the definition of habeas corpus? What is habeas corpus? Now, we know it to be, just to ad lib, a due process. Everyone needs their day in court. So what does she say? She says it's the president's constitutional right to remove people in this country. That's what she believes habeas corpus is. So you wonder why the employees of Homeland Security, at least some of them anyway, are following that form of thinking. When the Director of Homeland Security says that habeas corpus is the president's constitutional right to remove people from this country, come on, man. Come on, man. And I'm sure you've seen all the other meetings with these cabinet members or what have you. It's kind of crazy. Let me take a look. I have a lot of comments here. Let's take a look here. I know you guys are commenting and I'm busy rattling on. Probably sorry about that. Let's take a look. Encourage more viewers to share. I appreciate that. Harley. Yeah, this 2025, yeah. That stuff will put people asleep, but it's very eye-opening in the same. Trump is a puppet? Yeah, no doubt. Okay, let's take a look. Billionaires are funding the unrest. Yeah. You know, I hear this thing about Soros all the time. To tell you this, I really know much about him. So I'm going to lay light on my comments in regards to Soros. But I'm sure all the billionaires in one way, shape, or form want to have legislation go in their direction. Again, it's not about the small guys. It's about the guys the ultra-rich. These guys want to keep the status quo. They want to keep nice. It's about the guys the ultra-rich. These guys want to keep the status quo. They want to keep money. And who's going to have the right legislation for these guys in order for them to in order for them to get ahead as billionaires? They're hedging their bets as to they're hedging their bets as to who's going to give them the best bang for their buck, who's going to give them the best return on their investment. So they're going to put their money towards whoever's going to give them the best return on their investment. Okay, that's what these guys are about. Okay, and one of the examples about that is these tariffs. Just to get off the parade for a quick second, I know we were talking about that, but just to get off the parade for a quick second, with these tariffs, I call them tariff talks because all it is talk. People call him Taco, he chickens out. He's not really chickening out. He never really meant this to begin with. That was a ploy, number one, to try to make some type of underhanded deals with the international community, try to put him in a position. But even worse than that, you remember back on April 9th, he put out a text message. And the text message said, now it's a good time to buy. Now, I'm sure Martha Stewart knows a lot about this. Now it's a good time to buy. But later that day, he also went ahead and took away the tariffs or gave a 90-day reprieve for the tariffs. Now, until that point, the market was tanking. I mean, people were losing money left and right. People had these 401k plans, people who had the 529 plans, and some people were reacting and taking their money out because they didn't know how low it would go. Okay, so as a result, a lot of these stocks are pennies on the dollar, pretty much. So he gives a message to his on his social media. Now's a good time to buy. 4 hours later, he mentions the 90-day reprieve, and the market shoots up. All those billionaires go and they make crap full of money, a whole bunch of money from all these people who lost their money. These rich people went ahead and made all this money. Now, they have a word. They have two words for that. I'm sure you guys know what that is. Insider trading. Okay? So, as a result, the regular people lost their money, and the people who had money to spare, expendable cash, they're the ones who came in, the billionaires, and they picked up those stocks. That was the reason for the tariff. So you can drop the stock market, and then people can go in, and they can go ahead and pick up the losses that the other people had. Now, some people who didn't have all that many resources saw it as well, and they saw it as a good opportunity because they worked the markets. But the majority of the people were the billionaires. As a matter of fact, there was an open mic session later on in the White House where he said to Charles Schwab, I made you $2 billion, and some other guy was there, I made you 100 or 900 $1 million or what have you. I made you. I made you $2 billion. I made you $900 million. So that's what the tariff talks. I don't think you'll hear much about the tariff talks, and he'll do it only because he started it. But they're not going to go anywhere, especially with the adjudications in court. I know there was a stay on that, but eventually that'll be squashed because the privilege or the responsibility to raise tariffs or to lower tariffs are for the Congress, not for the president. Now, as far as his executive orders are concerned, 96% of the court cases that he's been handed because of these executive orders, he's been losing. And he's been losing because of this. He's been losing because what the courts are doing is they're taking his executive order, and they're not matching it up against anything else but the Constitution. The Constitution, if you live in this country, that's the law of the land. You just can't change it because it's convenient, and if you do, it has to be an amendment through through Congress. Okay, so so you can't actually just change it whenever you want to change it. So what he's doing is he's taking and I think where it falls is a lot of people think that because the Supreme Court said Donald Trump was immune from things as he does as president within his official capacity, they thought that meant, well, he can do anything he wants now because he's the president. So that's what they think. So he's writing all the executive orders, think that he can do anything he wants as the president. But all executive orders have to line up with the Constitution. They just can't be arbitrary. You just can't say, the Gulf of Mexico, it's not in the Constitution, but just to give you an example, the Gulf of Mexico is the Gulf of America, blah, 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 because I say so, okay? But whatever he says in his executive orders has to line up with the Constitution. If it's not constitutional, that's why these courts are slapping this stuff back. That's why they're slapping it back. It has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans or Republican judges or or whatever it might be, or what do they call them, rogue judges. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that Trump is writing executive orders which go against the Constitution. That's the reason why he's getting it slapped back. I know this is one conference, or what was it, a cabinet meeting where Pam Bondi had got up, and I did a video about that too, about how she had said he's the best president ever, 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 ever. I don't know where she's getting that from, but so these guys are just falling in line with him, and then they've got the Justice Department falling in line with him as well. So they think they can make their own laws, and she also stated you've got 200 lawsuits against you. Well, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have said that out loud. Number one, it's embarrassing. 200 lawsuits pending against a sitting president. Come on, man. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. And it's not people, these rogue judges or the law. Yeah, well, it is the law coming back on him because he's not following the Constitution. The reason why he has all of these temporary restraining orders or reversals is because he's not doing things the right way. There are ways to do things, there are ways aren't to do things. And Donald Trump is just, he's doing it the way he wants, and he's getting slapped back from the courts. And it's not going to work for him. If he does it the right way, which I doubt he will do, but if he does it the right way, then they'll see it his way. And if it's constitutional, then they'll go ahead and, they'll agree with him. He'll win whatever suit he's going out to do. But a lot of the wins he has in court right now are not wins where it reverses. They are mainly stays to give the courts enough time, to appeals courts, to analyze it. And once they analyze it, they'll find out what the lower courts found out as well. Let's go and take a look. What we got here? Okay. As I said, I sort of got off track a little bit. I am going to come back. You understand? You are repeating propaganda. No. Mr. Chill Investigator, or whatever you are. Chill Investigator. No, I'm not spreading propaganda. I already just said this is my opinion. Okay, everyone is entitled to one. It's just that I do my due diligence and I do my homework. I just don't take what people say. If I want to find out about the military parade, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to find out about it in person. That's what I do. Okay, so I went down there in person. As far as all these things about Trump, I do say take it with a grain of salt. Believe it or don't believe it. But it's not propaganda. It's my opinion. Everyone has one. But as I said, I do my due diligence and I do my homework. So some of the stuff I may know, I might have done some research on it to find out that information. And there might be forums out there that people are engaged with that talk about these things. People of intelligence, people who are cybersecurity experts, computer experts, lawyers, doctors, judges. They may be having these forums in which they're talking about these things, where they know, okay? From some of the computer experts that we have, and we're talking to, they say that doing some of these things with computers and adjusting the results of computers for certain applications, it's like child's play. It's like 101. Anybody can do it. Anybody who has any sophistication can do it. So if you have a billionaire out there that can hire the best of the best of the best, people can make computers dance out there. So for us to be under the misconception that things are safe and things are okay because this software is okay, think again. So it's not propaganda. It's my opinion. You have yours, I have mine. Appreciate you putting your 2 cents in there, though. There we go. Don't understand politics. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I understand a lot more than you know, my friend. Maybe it's not to me. Maybe it's to somebody else. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading these off skew. Maybe you guys are talking back and forth to each other and that question's to me. But look, though, what I'm going to do, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, but I do have to run. It's Father's Day. My daughters are waiting to take me out to lunch. So I will come back a little bit later on when everything has settled down, probably later on this evening. Please follow me. So this way you can see, because I put out videos, 2 or 3 videos every day with my commentary. I'll take clips and I'll do the research on them to make sure that I'm not spreading propaganda, and I'll go ahead and put my 2 cents on them. So go ahead and listen to the ones that I have. I don't shoot from the hip. I like to know information before I actually recite it. And I'll come back to you a little bit later, hopefully with some other thoughts for the day when after I celebrate this Father's Day stuff with my daughters. But I definitely appreciate you guys coming on, and I'll talk to you a bit later. Thank you. Have a good day.